Well, everybody, welcome to March's monthly market update. My name is Alex Hughes with the North Pacific Homes Group here in Victoria. In this video, we're going to be summarizing Q1 and two major announcements from the federal government. So getting through some quick stats in the beginning, 588 properties sold, relatively flat from last year, but a 25% increase from February. 2,647 active listings, and benchmark single family came in at 1,279,300, which is 1.7% up from last month, and benchmark condos came in at 567,300, which was 3.3% up from last month. There's a considerable jump in activity from February to March, but looking out of all of Q1, relatively stagnant for this year in terms of total sales. Now, what the main difference between this and last year is the number of inventory that we've seen increase. And this, of course, is both beneficial for buyers and sellers, as essentially we're bringing more confidence into the market, more options to choose from, so there's less hesitancy to get your home on the market. Everyone is anticipating a busy spring market. And with the idea that interest rates are going to drop later on in the year, with the next announcement actually on April 10th, there is an idea that prices might jump up. So what buyers are starting to do is trying to get ahead of the game by getting into the market now. And actually what we're starting to see is more variable rate mortgages, as if interest rates do drop, your mortgage is actually going to drop as well. However, we don't anticipate seeing these massive price jumps like we did in COVID. And of course, the main deciding factor is going to be our inventory. If inventory is still staying on the trend it currently is, of course, there might be some appreciation, but nothing near what we saw during COVID. There have been two major announcements from the federal government this month. And the first one we're going to be talking about is the Renters' Bill of Rights. This has yet to be introduced as official legislation, but there's going to be talks about how these are going to further protect the rights of both landlords and tenants, but leaning significantly more towards tenants. The first thing that's going to be that I'm a big fan of is that your rental history is actually going to go towards your credit score. So right now that's going to be able to obviously affect your credit score in a positive way. That's going to help you get better rates on your mortgage and maybe even a business loan. Another piece of this legislation is that landlords are going to need to present their rental history to prospective tenants. Now, the idea behind this is that renters are going to have more knowledge into what they're going into so they can negotiate on their rent. Now, personally, unless we see a large influx of supply for renters, I don't really think that this is necessarily going to be doing anything. Yes, you'll be able to see the history, but as of right now, there is so much demand that if you try to negotiate on your rent, somebody else is going to come in and pay full price. Now, the third piece of legislation is bad faith evictions. Now, BC is currently leading Canada in bad faith evictions, with the most common being landlord use of the property. Now, currently how the legislation is written is that if a landlord evicts you for landlord use of the property that's not associated with the buyer buying the property, they have to reside in the property for 6 months prior to being able to re-rent this. Now, this of course is used as a tactic if the renter has been there for quite a while and rent is below market. So what this legislation is talking about doing, and again, nothing has been solidified, is moving the 6-month benchmark to 12 months. Now, the other thing as well is they're going to be doing or trying to lessen the time for RTB, or the Residential Tenancy Board. Currently, if you do have a complaint, it's taking anywhere between 8 to 12 months in order to get in front of somebody. So shortening that timeline is going to help both renters and landlords. Another major piece of legislation is the federal government's announcement to pledge $6 billion to help aid infrastructures. Now, this fund will only be accessible from provinces that make certain commitments, such as missing middle initiatives, and a great one is going to be 3-year freeze on development charges for any cities that are over 300,000 people. This fund is primarily going to be geared towards giving provinces and cities infrastructure needs, such as upgrading their sidewalks, sewer, and water capabilities. With the federal election looming next year, October 2025, it seems like the current government is really trying to improve their placing in the polls and pushing towards housing needs. Now, being boots on the ground, of course, we're appreciative of seeing more legislation coming in to make our areas more affordable. However, the legislation we've currently seen is either too little, too late, or quite honestly missing the mark entirely. So it'll be very interesting to see how these actually come into effect and how they help the affordability crisis going on, especially in BC. And that's everything I have for you folks today. As always, any questions, comments, concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you. Now, there's one more time. There's a considerable jump in one more time. Okay. In bad faith. Now a $1 billion pledge to provinces. Another major announcement, fund home.
You're gonna be fine.
Yeah, more ways for there to be affordability. And that's everything that I have. Another